Welcome to the Hard Truth Podcast. This is Jeremy Fouts, and today we have a special guest with us, and we are going to be talking mainly about the importance of strength training over just being on the treadmill on a daily basis. Obviously, we're going to talk about the cardio importance of as well, but today we have Dr. Christine Boev, who is a PhD prepared ICU nurse with extensive training and experience with health, wellness, fitness, and anti-aging. Her areas of expertise include metabolic health, supplementation, and use of alternative therapies to enhance cellular health. Her goal is to be able to maintain her current aerobic condition when she is 120 years old. Christine, I cannot wait for you to coach me to be right beside you at 120 years old, doing handstand push-ups. This is amazing. If you have not yet, go check out her profile on Instagram. She is in unbelievable fitness shape. And just somebody, it's going to be a joy for the audience today to be able to learn from Dr. Boev. And I cannot wait for Christine to share with you her secrets of what she is doing, not only in her personal health, but to help others. So, Dr. Christine, it's an honor and a privilege to have you on today's Hard Truth podcast. And I cannot wait. Tell us a little bit more background about yourself. I know I gave them a short bio, but how you found also the love of fitness and helping others in your journey.
Let's go. What up?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeremy. I think, like most of you, I was always very fit and healthy. And when I was younger, especially in my 20s and 30s, I could eat whatever I wanted. And as long as I worked out, I was able to maintain a relatively good physique. But what happens when you get older, you get into your 40s, I'm approaching 50, things really start to slow down. And so I went through this really frustrating period of gaining weight, especially in my midsection. I felt really tired. I had a lot of brain fog, kind of felt like a psychopath on some days. And I went on this journey to figure out what the heck is going on and how do I fix it. And so I've really committed my life's purpose to helping other men and women avoid the struggle that I went through and really share with you guys what I've learned. And it's really common sense hard work. There's no magic pills, there's no potion, there's no quick fix. But I feel like I did waste a lot of time experimenting on things that didn't work to find what actually makes sense to live a long, happy life. And so I do plan on getting to 120. And if I keep doing the handstand push ups, then I don't feel like I'll ever not be able to.
Absolutely. It's funny. We believe in the same thing. That's the reason I named the podcast The Hard Truth, Dr. Christine. Everyone is looking for the cheat codes. Everyone's
Mhm.
looking for the pill. Everybody's looking for the shot. And I love what you said. There is no such thing. I'm working with an individual now that's mine and your age. And he's like, man, I haven't really seen the results yet. It's just been 2 weeks. And I'm like, you've neglected your health for the last 15 years, man. You're not going to see it in 2 weeks. And a lot of people don't understand that. But what I try to teach him is this is something that's going to be a lifestyle. You're not going to have to go back to looking for a diet crash or a cheat code or anything like that. So I love to have you on. One of the first things I know that you work with your clients, and I work with mine as well, is the importance of dialing in their macros. And a lot of
Mhm.
people probably still listening to this podcast don't even know what macros are. So if you could start by, dialing in our nutrition. Let's say I'm looking to lose weight. Most of the clients are looking to lose weight, but they also need to be putting on muscle. So how would you work with someone the first time you're introduced to them to dialing in their macros?
Yeah, great question, Jeremy. So, muscle is your longevity organ. If you want to live a long life, you must put muscle on your frame, male or female, it doesn't matter. And so, if you need to lose weight, then we've got to dial in your nutrition so that you're in a calorie deficit in order to get to an ideal body weight so that you can live a longer life. Your three macronutrients are your proteins, your carbohydrates, and your fats. And when I talk about all the things I did wrong in my past life, I did keto, which is too much fat. I did low carb, which was not sustainable. but I never had enough protein in my diet. And really, the key when I'm starting working with a client is not only to determine, okay, what is your ideal caloric goal based on your basal metabolic rate, but also how much protein do you need? And it's much more than you think it is if you're trying to put on skeletal lean muscle. And so most clients come to me with two problems. They've got too much body fat and they don't have enough skeletal lean muscle. So my approach is, let's change your body composition through increasing the amount of protein that you're eating, through a good strength training program, and then also trying to recondition. Carbohydrates are your friend. Like, you can't, so many of my clients are like, ooh, I heard carbs are bad for me. They're going to make me fat. So we're trying to deprogram all of this false information that people are getting that's really prohibiting them from reaching their goals. And I think the other thing that you were talking about with your client, nobody has any patience. And so if they spend, a couple weeks, even a month, and they don't see immediate changes, they're like, well, I'm out. This isn't working. And they go to another program. And they've wasted so much time and resources because they just don't stick to anything.
Yeah. And I think the key, though, too, Dr. Christine, is people don't understand that when you are putting on muscle, you don't just focus on the scales alone, because what you said, it's the body composition. I weigh 195 now. I can show you pictures of 4 or 5 years ago when I was not strength training and weighed 195, and I look like a totally different person. I look like I weigh 175 now compared to 195 then,
Mhm.
but I weigh pretty much the same weight. Is that something that you see that's a struggle with the clients, of just only focusing on the scale and not knowing and recognizing what's going on from a composition change?
Yeah, 1000%. The bathroom scale is the devil. And so many people are emotionally attached to that number that shows up on the scale. So much so that if they gain a pound, they like have a bad day. And so I really focus on, how do your clothes fit? How do you feel? We do weekly progress photos and measurements. So the bathroom scale is not a good measure of body composition. And so we really, like, I don't even care if y'all throw your scales in the garbage. They are not helpful.
Yep. I know you mentioned BMR. A lot of people listening in the audience maybe don't know what BMR is and the importance of BMR. Can you explain to us why that's so important for the amount of calories that you're going to burn on a daily basis?
Yeah, great question. So BMR is your basal metabolic rate. And it's a calculation, and you can just go on Google and there's a BMR calculator that'll help you. These are the number of calories that you need at rest simply to exist. And what's really cool is, as you put on more skeletal lean muscle, your BMR goes up. So the amount of calories that you burn simply by existing is going to go up as you put more muscle on, because you're becoming more metabolic. So you're becoming more efficient in the way that you metabolize and burn calories. And that's their ultimate goal. My kind of philosophy is, let's work smarter, not harder. Nobody's got 2 hours a day to spend in the gym. So how can I make a 45-minute, high quality, efficient, strategic program that's really going to help you change your body composition?
Okay, you mentioned the importance of protein. I'm a big protein person as well. I mean, I try to consume about 1.5 grams of protein per my body weight. And sometimes I'll even go up to two, depending on if I'm trying to bulk or put on more muscle. But what do you recommend for your clients?
So if you're just starting out, and I often get clients who have very little experience, they don't have a lot of exercise experience and they don't have a lot of muscle on their frame. So I'll start with 1 gram per pound of body weight, and then I will adjust accordingly depending on how we're doing. I typically, for myself, I'm 145 pounds. I try to hit 160 grams of protein a day. But in order to do that, you need to be really strategic. So I am great about front loading my protein. I don't walk out the house before I have about 80 grams. And that's through my post workout protein, my breakfast. And then I'm a huge fan of collagen protein. I put that in my coffee every day, which is great for your connective tissue, skin, hair, and nails. So I found some easy ways to get the protein in. You always want to go for whole food sources first, But, if you're trying to get, 300 grams of protein for yourself, it's hard to eat that much just from whole food sources. So I'm really careful about recommending strategic supplementation to help hit that protein goal.
Absolutely. With Dr. Christine, after this podcast, I'm going to have you coming your way some Corvive protein, which we use grass fed whey protein and it's collagen also. So
Love
I
it.
cannot wait for you to try that. I'm the same way. I start off every morning with 5 eggs and then I do a protein shake and then I go to the gym. I come back, I do two more protein shakes with egg whites. And then about 2 hours later, I'm doing yogurt with protein shake mixed up with the chocolate pudding. So I usually have 150 grams of protein, probably about around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the day. So I believe big time on getting the protein in as early as you can because I see a lot of the clients I'm working with. And if they have not got the protein in by 2 or 3 o'clock, then they try to do it all at night.
Mhm.
They're gonna end up failing.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's very satiating. So when you've got that much protein in your system, it takes a lot more energy to digest, so you're not as hungry throughout the day. The other thing that happens, and I love that you start your day with 5 eggs, you're not starting your day and spiking your blood sugar, which causes your insulin to go on a roller coaster ride for the rest of the day, which is why we tend to get hungry and irritable and we get headaches and things like that. So, starting off your day with a high quality protein source is everything because it sets the tone for how you're going to feel and eat for the rest of the day. I think the worst thing you could do is start your day off with a high carbohydrate, high glycemic carbohydrate, where you go from like fasted to all of a sudden your body's got to produce all of this insulin in response to this garbage that you just put in your system. So I love that you're doing that, Jeremy. That's really smart.
Yeah, Dr. Christine, you and I have definitely evaluated the people that get up in the morning, go to Starbucks and get two
Oh,
bagels, and that's their morning diet. And then an hour and a half later, they're falling asleep at their desk. They have to go back and grab some more carbs. We've seen that over and over. Okay, so let's talk about exercise. We understand now the importance of macro, understand the importance of getting an amount of large amount of protein in your body. Talk to us about exercise that you found is best for your clients, whether they're trying to lose weight or they're trying to put on the muscle. I know a lot of women especially have this phobia of, oh, I don't want to lift weights because I'm going to get bulky and all this different things. And explain to us what kind of exercise programs and workout programs you suggest to your clients.
so I have a lot of reformed or recovering runners, cyclers, love the cardio. And when I was going through my kind of exploration, I would do all this high intensity cardio and my body never changed. And I do believe it's your evolutionary stress response, where if you're running and sprinting, your brain is telling your body, like, hey, like something's coming to eat me and chase me. And it produces a lot of cortisol. Well, cortisol
Mhm.
is our fat storage hormone. So if you want to lose weight, high intensity cardio is not the answer. And that's what happened to me. I never changed at all because I was constantly putting myself in this heightened state of stress. So what I do with my clients is I have them on a 5 day or 6 day strength regimen where we focus on different body systems, very classical training style, where we'll do chest and triceps one day, back and biceps, shoulders, and then lower body. Women tend to only want to work their lower body and their abs, but then they look very disproportionate because their upper body is just kind of, no muscle tone, and that's not a nice aesthetic look. So I have to recondition. Not only are you not going to sit on the elliptical for a half an hour anymore, but you need to work on your chest and your shoulders and your triceps. And we do that through sensible strength training.
Yes. I know you mentioned that muscle is the longevity, organ that's going to help us live not only longer, but a good quality of life. Could you explain to the audience why that is so important? I know you and I both know, but we see the different elderly people that fall and break a hip and then they never,
Mhm.
come back to life. But why is that so important for a good quality of life, not just living longer?
Yeah, so it isn't just about looking good, but it's also about function. So when you have more muscle on your frame, you're supporting your bones more. So one of the biggest reasons that I see as a healthcare provider is when you get older, you slip, you fall, you break your hip, and then that's the beginning of the end, right? You start that slow decline of mobility decreasing. And it's so important as you guys get older that you do not slow down. You know, that phrase, move it or lose it, could not be more true. So, strength training helps to strengthen your muscles, but it also helps to improve your mobility. One of the bigger mistakes I see people make is they just do strength training. They don't work on any mobility, they don't work on stretching, and they don't work on balance. So, one of the other things that I do to subsidize my strength training is I love yoga. Yoga is a great way to work on core strength and balance so that, I don't plan on falling ever because I'm always thinking about like that mind muscle connection, paying attention to what's happening with my core, my center, and like being really present in the moment so that we're not distracted walking around looking at our phone and like all of a sudden we're on the floor face planted.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know you've also really put a lot of training and education yourself into anti-aging. And I know we have a younger audience. I've got some athletes that listen to this podcast, so they can probably share this, the younger ones, with their mom and dad. But, the anti-aging thing, once you get to be 48, like myself, you really start paying attention to any kind of supplementation or anything that you can do from an anti-aging perspective. So what are some of the things you've helped with your older clients of mastering the anti-aging process?
Yeah. And I have teenagers too. So I have a 19-year-old who we work out together a lot and work on some of these alternative therapies to try to help, just improve his overall physique. So some of the things that I think about, so I think about these in two different camps. I think about supplementation and then I think about temperature extremes. So one of my favorite temperature extremes, I am in the infrared sauna daily. I usually spend about 30 to 45 minutes, and I don't care how old you are, the infrared sauna is everything because we're exposed to so many environmental toxins out there in the world. It really helps to get rid of those heavy metals, those toxins, pesticides, plastics, get them out of your system. And it also helps with inflammation. So we're all exposed to things that cause us to be in a higher state of inflammation, which is why you might look down at your belly and be like, why am I kind of fluffy and bloated? It all has to do with inflammation. And so things that we can do to decrease the inflammatory response, in addition to the infrared sauna, I'm a huge fan of cold plunging, and I like to hop in the cryo chamber every now and then. Although it is excruciating, it's super powerful in terms of like quelling that inflammation response.
Yes, I start my day every morning with the sauna,
Love
infrared
it.
sauna, and then a cold plunge.
Mm.
I have both of those in my garage. I'm a big believer in both of them, and it's crazy because the cold plunge at 39 degrees, I do it every morning at 5 a.m. And a lot of people say, well, you enjoy it?" And I say, "No, I don't enjoy it." But it's amazing how after you get out, it's amazing how you feel for the next 2 to 3 hours. And I mean, it's something that not only does it help me physically, but it helps me mentally be able to handle any task throughout the day because I just got through doing something really hard at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so, have you noticed that as well? That not only does the infrared sauna and the cold plunge help you physically, but it helps you mentally?
Absolutely. The mental improvements that I've seen from both of those therapies outweighs any sort of antidepressant or alcohol or weed or anything like that. Like, you do not need those substances when you are able to use, like, this is a common sense, like, God given way that we can control our environment, quell inflammation. I feel like a new person. I've hopped in the cryo chamber before when I was just like absolutely exhausted, and I came out sparkling. And
Yes.
so those types of therapies are great for all ages, and their benefits, I don't think we even have appreciated the extent of the benefits because they're newer, right? Infrared sauna is not so much, but cold plunging has really started to take off. There's probably a dozen now different companies that make cold plunges
Yeah.
where, 10 years ago there was one. Or we live on a lake, I would jump in the lake in the middle of the winter, and that was like the best cold plunge.
Yes. Okay, so now we're going to get into talking about lipid panels. And I know a lot of people don't really understand, what a lipid panel is and the importance of understanding your blood work. Could you kind of go into now what you do when you look at a lipid panel, some of the evaluations that you look at, and why is that so important for us to know what our current lipid panel is?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The temperature on cholesterol is finally starting to change.
Hmm.
And the medical community, they're always about a decade behind, what the anti-aging community is looking at. But cholesterol is not the devil that we thought it was.
No.
And cholesterol and fats create the cell membrane. I'm not going to get too nerdy on us, but it creates the cell membrane for all of our hormones. So if you drive your cholesterol down with a bunch of statins, then you are going to have hormonal dysregulation. And whether you're a male or a female, that's not something that you want to deal with. So when you go to the doctor and you ask for a traditional lipid panel, they're going to give you a total cholesterol, a high density lipoprotein, which is your HDL, and a low density lipoprotein, which is your LDLs. Now, HDL was always called your good cholesterol, which is kind of weird, and LDL was called your bad cholesterol. And those are very elementary descriptions of those particles because there's different kinds of LDLs and they're not all bad. Your high density lipoproteins, your HDLs, they go up when you exercise, and you want those on the higher side. But if those are higher, your total cholesterol is higher. So it's kind of like this cascade effect. Your LDLs, there's good parts of it, and so that might be a little bit higher as well. There's better measurements. There's one that's called your apolipoprotein B, and that kind of helps you to quantify how much plaque is swimming around in your arteries. Because if you're going to have a heart attack, it's because you got a bunch of plaque that's built up inside your arteries that have caused an obstruction. And so that helps you kind of figure out that. But there's better ways that you can figure out the health of the insides of your arteries that have nothing to do with a lipid panel. So it's good information to have, but I would just do some homework before you let somebody throw you on a statin, because we're really understanding that's not as highly correlated to stroke and heart disease as we thought.
Yeah, I know it's big cardiovascular disease and all there's tons of people even my age that are struggling with cardiovascular issues. What are some of the strategies that you recommend to people, to help, with the cardiovascular disease?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is if you smoke or you've ever smoked, you can't. It
Right.
is absolutely critical that you stop smoking and vaping as well. I told you I have teenagers, and for some reason, people think vaping is a little bit more safe than actually smoking. I've actually said to my son's friends, like, if you're going to smoke marijuana, you're better off rolling an old fashioned joint with grass inside of it versus this chemical that is filled with hot oil. That's not something that you want to have in your system. So obviously, no smoking. And then let's clean up your diet. You really want to increase the amount of nice green leafy vegetables, making sure you have enough fiber, hitting your protein goals so that you have enough muscle mass, and then just being thoughtful about the amount of fat and the types of fat that you put in your body. So really leaning towards mono unsaturated fats, olive oils, avocado, nuts, seeds. Those are all things that your body recognizes and knows how to metabolize. Genetics, you can't beat genetics. So you need to know, if you have a first degree relative, your dad, your mom who have heart disease, you are unfortunately at higher risk. So you need to pay closer attention to those risk factors and just really know what your blood pressure is and what your labs are. Hypertension is called the silent killer because you don't have any symptoms. So you've got to make sure your systolic blood pressure is less than 120.
Okay, I know we talked about weight training and the importance of weight training, but I know there's still a lot of the audience that's going to be listening and say, "Oh, I just love my cardio time." How could you again emphasize that all that cardio time, how it's sabotaging, the weight loss that you're trying to achieve?
So I don't necessarily think all cardio is bad. I'm a big proponent of low impact cardio that where your heart rate is, they call it zone two training. So basically, and don't get overwhelmed by this, guys, but take 220 minus your age, and then you multiply it by zero point 0.8. That's where you want your heart rate. So for Jeremy and I, we're probably going to be in the 120s to 130s. So what does that look like? It could be walking, kayaking, like low impact, so that if Jeremy and I were on a walk, we could carry on this conversation without getting out of breath. There's a lot of value to low impact cardio that's going to be helpful. And not for nothing, it's enjoyable. So I highly recommend that versus sprinting, running, things that are just absolutely excruciating. There's really no need to do all that.
Yes. I mean, two of my favorite, I do a little bit of cardio on a daily basis, and
Hmm.
I've got three favorites. I do rucking, and so I just
Oh,
put
yeah.
in a good podcast and do some rucking with 45-pound weight on my
Hmm.
back. And then I also love doing Stairmaster just at a slow pace
Yep.
and then just walking on an incline. Is that
Yep.
something you'd recommend to your clients?
Absolutely. So I usually do a 30 to 45 minutes of low impact cardio every day. And I do it outside, regardless of the temperature, for my own mental health and sanity. My
Yes.
husband and I will go for a walk. I take the dog for a walk, and it just helps me get into a good health headspace. And it also just gives me some quiet alone time. So, yes, absolutely. However, if you have to choose between strength training and cardio, because it's a time thing, I need you to choose the strength training because
Yes.
that's really where your best benefit is going to be.
Yes, and then if you go on a walk after dinner, and
Yeah.
and getting the sunlight. I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but there's things that God did that we cannot do it better. And I don't know what your opinion is on just getting the sunlight, but I
Yeah.
think it's big.
It's huge because the other supplementation we got to talk about is vitamin D. And we are chronically deficient in vitamin D because we are told that, sunscreen is bad for us and, we're all deficient. So, yeah, get outside. I don't care what the temperature is. Like, I live in upstate New York, it's cold a lot. Like, put a coat on, right? It's not
Right.
a big deal. But I love being outside regardless of the climate.
Yes, over 80% of the population, depending on the race, it's different, right? But over 80% are deficient in vitamin D. I
Hmm.
mean, and then another thing that I've read probably about 3 years ago that a lot of people probably don't understand. I know you probably do, Dr. Christine, is, one of the best ways we get vitamin D is in our eyes. And a
Hmm.
lot of people, the minute they go outside, they put on sunglasses. I
Yep.
mean, is that something that you've heard as well?
Absolutely, because we've been told, right, that we're going to damage our retina and our cornea. We just had the big eclipse, a few months ago, and it's like, wear your glasses. And no, you shouldn't stare directly in the sunlight. And Jeremy and I aren't telling you to do that, but it is okay to go outside without your sunglasses. Now, for me, vanity wise, I don't want wrinkles around my eyes. So that's why I typically do put my sunglasses on. But the sun is your friend. And if you live in a northern climate like I do, you need to get your vitamin D levels tested every 6 months. And most people,
Yes.
and again, talk to your doctor, but most people need to supplement. I supplement every day with vitamin D.
Finally get them to take their vitamin D on a daily basis. But I know vitamin D is like the bottom root to everything that happens, which vitamin D stimulates the DHEA, which DHEA stimulates your testosterone. I mean, everything, it just works in that order, but it starts with that vitamin D.
Yeah, 1000%. And I'm sure this is the topic for another day, but men in this country's testosterone levels are chronically low. If you compare them to what they were in the 1960s, it's like a bunch of 90-year-old men walking around.
There was a recent study, probably about a year ago, that came out with the doctor that talked about the importance of sleep for testosterone and recovery for young athletes. And I was reading this study, and it said that if a
Mm,
16-year-old son or 16-year-old boy misses 9 hours of sleep for up to 7 days, their testosterone levels as looks like on a panel of a 27-year-old versus a 16-year-old. And so I know you're big on sleep as well. That's something, Dr. Christine, that I really
isn't that
neglected in my
crazy?
30s. I just thought I was bulletproof. I was building businesses, going here, going there. Did not understand that. Then when I got to mid 40s and started strength training extremely hard, I'm like, oh man, I really need my sleep. And so, how would you put sleep as a priority in everything that we're trying to do as far as transform our body?
Yeah, I mean, sleep is foundational to your health and wellness. I was in ICU, well, I still am an ICU nurse, but I used to work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 nights a week. And it was horrible. And there's studies that show that the length of your telomeres on your DNA actually get shorter if you work night shift because your circadian rhythms are so disrupted and you die sooner. So I know we need night shift workers, but I'm so glad that I don't do that anymore. I'm really protective around my sleep time, and my whole family knows this, that at 9:30 I'm in my bed, I read my book, and I'm really careful about my environment, screens, lights, stimuli. One of the things
Oh
I
yeah.
do is I have a notepad next to my bed because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I lay down, my brain decides to like go on overdrive. So I'll write down things that I don't want to forget, and that helps me settle in. But I
Yep.
need seven
I've got one
solid
as well.
hours a night.
Yes.
I track everything with
Oh
my
yeah.
Aura ring. I don't know if you're familiar, but yeah, I love this thing. I get mad at it sometimes because I think it's kind of like it I don't know, it robs me of some of my sleep time, but it gives you great feedback, great data to let you know like, hey, you need to do better. You need to get more deep sleep, more REM sleep. And it's a something I've been working at. And as you get older, guys, sleep gets harder. You know, when we were younger, we could sleep anywhere, anytime.
You're exactly right. And a lot of people too don't understand that our muscles need to recover for sleep, our
Yeah.
hormones, but it's also big for our brain health for sleep.
Oh yeah. So there's this whole system inside of your brain. It's called your glymphatic system with the letter G. And when you are
Hmm.
sleeping, especially in that deep sleep, your cerebral spinal fluid gets a bath. And if you don't hit enough deep sleep, then you're not going to get that cleansing that gets out things like amyloid plaques that cause Alzheimer's disease and things that cause dementia and cognitive impairment. So, getting that deep sleep is huge for our neurologic functioning. And also, as our hormones fluctuate as we get older, those impact our ability and our cognition as well. So we don't want to
Yeah.
allow these massive shifts. You know, Jeremy, you don't want your
No,
testosterone to
no.
plummet because, frankly, you're going to become dumber.
You are a wealth of knowledge. I love your kindred spirit. I love everything about what you're doing of taking your knowledge and helping others. That's something that, definitely I can see you have a passion for. So do I. A lot of people will educate themselves and not take that information and transfer it to others. So tell us how someone can get in touch with you. Maybe they love what you're saying. They want that personal coach. I'm big on personal coaches. I really feel like it's worth the investment. There's no better investment you'll ever make than on your personal health. And I don't recommend very many people here on my podcast, but you are definitely a knowledgeable individual that have a passion for helping others. So if I'm listening to the podcast today and I'm like, man, I have got to let Dr. Christine take me by the hand and help transform my body, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
So go ahead and you can send me a message on Instagram. That's the easiest way. It's Dr. Christine Boev. And I would love to work with you. I love helping people. And the worse off you are, the better. I love a good
Yes.
challenge.
I've got a friend that called me
No.
the other day. He was looking at Ozempic. He's like, "Oh, I'm just going to have to, do this." And I'm like, "No, no, no. You don't want to go that route." And I know that's something that you and I have talked about as well as Ozempic. I mean, What is your thoughts on Ozempic and someone looking to change their life? Would you recommend them going the Ozempic route first, then coming to you, or just coming straight to you and getting on a good program?
So I have about 5 clients right now who are on Ozempic. If you are thinking about it, you need to work on strength and conditioning more than anybody else, because the problem with Ozempic is the majority of your weight loss is going to be muscle loss. And so that's something that you want to make sure does not happen. And so whether you're thinking about it or not, if you are, you definitely want to invest in a strength coach so that the weight loss is fat loss and not muscle loss. The other problem is once you stop taking it,
Right.
most people regain 2/3 of their weight, and it's expensive. So you don't want to do that. If you're working with somebody who's familiar with the product like myself, I can help you transition off of the medication and make sure that you are situated with a good strength and nutrition program so that you can sustain your results. So I'm not against.
Well, Dr. Christine, it's a pleasure podcast. I cannot wait. We're going to have you back on. I've not had someone really focus in on the importance of testosterone for
I
men,
would love
maybe,
to.
and women. That's another thing that a lot of women don't understand is the importance of testosterone for women as well. Thank you, Dr. Christine, for being on today. Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Hard Truth Podcast. I really encourage you putting your health a priority. Not only are you going to have a good quality of life, it's going to keep you from being a burden to your family later on. And that's something I highly recommend. Please follow this Hard Truth podcast, share it with your friends and family. There's someone out there that would love to hear Dr. Christine's side on transforming your body. And thank you guys for joining in to the Hard Truth podcast today.
Let's go.